Well, welcome all. It's good to be here in Melbourne. I've flown down from Brisbane today, and I'm here representing Weir Architect, myself, and also my wife, Karri Architect. We're the co-designers of this house, which is on the south coast of Western Australia. So we practice in both Western Australia and in Queensland. Very similar situation to Weir River Separation Creek, and I'll go through that in this presentation. I think we've got about 10 minutes each, and of course later on come and see me if you need some more details. So yes, I'd really like to thank Ben and Juliet for inviting me to be part of this 6x6 event. I think I'm the only non-Victorian architect here, so it's wonderful to be part of this, and it's a really important thing in our work dealing with bushfire responsive architecture. I'm actually on the committee for Standards Australia for AS 3959, which is the standard that most of you will be familiar with, I assume. And I can say that standard, it's a real pleasure to be on that committee. Juliet is also on that committee to be involved in improving that quite dynamic standard. I've written about, in the conversation on that we can build houses to survive bushfires, but for some reason we don't. And what I'm really excited about with Weir River Separation Creek is that there seems to be not just a regulatory requirement, but a real will and I guess necessity to build kind of earnestly and sustainably in that landscape. Some of the principal reasons, which I will cover, is a misunderstanding of the cost associated with building to the different bell levels, and I'll go into the cost of this particular house. Other issues that are to do with gaps in the regulations, say between the standard and planning regulations, and also the sense that it's better to clear bush rather than design better houses. And from an architect's point of view, I can say that yes, I'm biased, let's design better houses, and let's not set up earth-moving companies. So the owners are really quite special in this project. The husband is a professional firefighter, a career firefighter, and his wife is an emergency department head nurse in a regional hospital on the south coast of WA. So this is where we are geographically, right down south. And that's what the site looks like. A lot of the climate control, glare control, privacy, and obviously amenity is provided by this remarkable Karri forest. So this is a eucalyptus species which grows to about 40 metres. I think it's generally one of the tallest eucalypts in Australia. So we wanted to do a legitimate bushfire management project where we weren't relying on the neighbours to clear or manage their land to provide bushfire protection for this house. So it's Bell 40 principally because of the location of the boundary, the proximity of that to the house. There's reluctance in Western Australia to support anything higher than Bell 29, and it would be a little more difficult to build this house now, which is kind of paradoxical because we would essentially be requiring the neighbours to clear their land to get it down to, say, Bell 29. Similarly to Weir River Separation Creek is we're in a cool temperate area, and another one of the misunderstandings about building in bushfire-prone areas is that the bushfire standard is the principal contributor to cost or to new costs. So for those of you that have lost your houses that might have been built in previous decades, you'll actually find that in most cases it will be the energy efficiency requirements that will be the single biggest contributor to rebuilding your house, not the bushfire requirements. And that's certainly the case that we found with this Bell 40 house. That's the plan of the house. I won't go into this in too much detail, but effectively the plan of the house is intrinsically linked to the Bell 40 requirements. And one of the key Bell 40 requirements is that every sheet of glass, whether it's operable or fixed, has to be protected by a mesh. And so we made every sheet of glass move, and every sheet of mesh obviously move with it in a kind of a marriage kind of situation. And the whole house is actually sort of designed around that. We actually had a Bell 29 rating for the rear elevation, which helped us produce these beautiful big picture windows. This is something that Standards Australia is trying to crack down on, so that there's just the one Bell rating for the whole all facades of the house. So the energy efficiency is actually the thermal mass here as others will present, is one of the big contributors to the energy performance, and of course, a fantastic material to use concrete blocks in a bushfire situation, because effectively in bushfire context it is fireproof. So we have this thick masonry wall at one side of the house, and then we have this real kind of elevated lightweight structure on the north, sort of branching out into the trees. And I get a few questions about the deck and a few questions about a suspended floor as a principle. Now, there's no constraint, certainly at Bell 40, to having a suspended floor. You certainly don't need a skirt all the way around it. And in this case, we don't have any combustible elements on the exterior facade of this building, whether it's the underside, the roof or the walls. So it's all structural steel, and in this case, because it's coastal, that's all hot dip galvanised. So these are structural steel cantilevered beams. The joists are also structural steel, and even though it looks like there's some timber in there, the decking is a Bell 40 rated composite material, and I think there's a few of those on the market at the moment. This one was called Modwood. So that's a kind of an expressive drawing of the house, which is the kind of drawings that architects like. It also sort of shows really what it's like, the kind of atmosphere of the house. But this is the kind of technical drawing that I think a lot of you would be more interested in, and this is the panels that I've got outside. And one of the main principles here is we've got this sort of 3 lines of defence, and part of that is that we've exceeded the Australian standard, where we have a steel cladding, which is compliant with Bell 40, a very inexpensive cladding. You can use just colour bond. We've actually got a timber framed stud work, again compliant with Bell 40, really inexpensive framing. But we're using, number 3 there is rock wool insulation, which is fantastic in bushfires. Not required under the standard for Bell 40, but just generally a great idea. And then number 2 is actually effectively a non-combustible sarking material, which exceeds the standard. So again, with the client that we had, working with this firefighter right at the very start, he was keen to spend a bit of extra money to get some extra kind of robustness in this house. And there's some details. So we get this kind of beautiful continuity, just using, realising that we like verandas, us Australians, so we have to work with their fire performance, fire resilience. And really that was the single biggest contributor to meeting the Bell 40 requirements, was that decking material and the structural steel that supports it. Everything else to do with the glazing type, toughened glass, you have to use anyway because you need safety glass in large sliding doors. The fly screens, which are the ember screens for Bell 40, are all required anyway in this landscape because we've got so many insects and so on. So really the single biggest contributor was the associated with building the veranda. And my costings worked out to around about $13,000. So Bell 40 for this house, which costs $500,000 to construct. The direct cost from Bell 40 was around about $13,000 of that. So very, very small percentage. One of the key construction methods here, this was owner built, was using structural steel framing to give us real control over construction sort of tolerances. And again, as I said, that's a hot dip galvanised for corrosion protection. There's our second line of defence, this fire non-combustible sarking. We get to see the steel expression there. That's Karri Fair, and there's the costings. I can go through that in more detail with those of you outside that are interested. And just some other houses, just to give a bit more context here. I've been working in bushfire-prone landscapes for around about 20 years, so some other concepts to dealing with Bell 40 are vertical roller perforated shutters, great way of dealing with it, hinging metal shutters, again with those 2 and 3 lines of defence behind them, Bell 40 structures with ferro cement bifold shutters, and then this one that we're working on at the moment. And that's me. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bill.